Hi, I'm your host, Nate Shear, and this is Mind Force, the podcast for love, life, and learning, where your mind matters. Today, we'll be talking about resiliency. And one thing I think is interesting is resiliency kind of is a buzzword in the military, and I feel like it's kind of been watered down. But today, I am sure you're going to leave with some actionable tips from the one and only Senior Master Sergeant, retired Arnold. I met him many moons ago. It's been a very long time. I would say he's one of the very few positive influences I remember from the Air Force, kind of my upbringing and coming along. He's just one of those gems, just that positive atmosphere, positive environment when he walks in a room. So now let's hear from the one and only Maurice Arnold. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became interested in the topic of mental fitness?
Yes, most definitely. Look, first of all, Nate, Nate and I go way back. So I have names for my people that are like terms of endearment. And I call Nate, I've always called him sheer excellence. Nate sheer excellence. Because he was a killer back then. But I'm Mo Arnold, and my organization is Molosophy, which is an organizational development team building firm with a specific focus on DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And along those lines, resiliency is a key part of that. I became interested in mental health / mental fitness because my mother, who was a brilliant yet broken woman, she experienced several nervous breakdowns prior to graduating high school. She was beautiful, intelligent, talented. She was innovative with a strong passion for justice. However, her lack of mental fitness shackled her, where she couldn't exploit the fullness of her potential. And that impacted me, that impacted our entire family. And so with that being said, that's why I am interested in mental fitness, because of the negative stigmatization associated with mental health.
Yeah, that's interesting because the reason I kicked off the show and really felt this pull was my grandmother lost her battle with mental health as I was growing up. And it's one of those things, like, I'm super disappointed and bummed that like my kids will never get to meet her and things like that. But the aspect of that was such the biggest loss to me was she was a light. When she would come in the room, she would smile, she would pull over to help somebody that needed help. She would chat to everyone in the grocery store line. Like, she was just this light. And so to imagine all those years and all those people that now won't get to experience the light that she brought into the world is so disappointing. And really the other aspect of that is not being able to ask for help. So like you said, the stigmatization, apparently, when we were kids, she, stayed in bed for a week at a time. We never knew that. And so there were so many people that she could have asked for help, and all the help that she poured into the world. There would have been 50 people that would have stood up and been like, yeah, let's help you. But it was so stigmatized and so much going on where she didn't think she could ask for help. And all she had to do was raise that hand and get some of that. So that's really the point of the point of this podcast, is these serious conversations where I'm hoping the more we have them, the more we make it normal, the more we, talk about mental fitness. Like, it's not out of the ordinary. It's not abnormal. You should be able to, as you're going over your calendar with friends or whoever, like, oh yeah, I'm swinging by to see my therapist. Okay. Like, we should be having conversations. We should be, working on things before they get bad. And that should be a normal thing that's in there. And we've talked about on the show a little bit, but mental fitness, really that key, like, you can talk about, the sets you're doing at the gym, but then we won't talk about, like I said, going to the therapist. So it should be the same thing. I'm working on buys and tries, and yeah, I'm going to swing by and talk to my counselor. Oh, that's awesome. Cool. So that's great. And you also mentioned or wanted to talk about, part of your mission in life.
Right. Most definitely. My mission in life is to see the people around me and everyone that I contact maximize their full potential. And so being resilient is a key element in that. One of the things that I really despise about the movement with resiliency is the definition. One thing to keep in mind, all problems are established by language and thinking. The thinking is the precursor to the language. And so when people say that resiliency deals with the ability to bounce back, I would say that is passive. Life isn't happening to me, I'm happening to life. And so I would define resiliency as the ability to move forward in austere conditions and simultaneously bounce back when I'm hit with something real heavy. So it's both. I'm moving forward. I'm stepping into the position as a president. That's a tough position. That takes resiliency. I must have all of the pillars of resiliency in place to be able to function at that level. Simultaneously, when I'm hit with something, I'm able to bounce back. Or I'm not even bouncing back. It's hitting me and bouncing off. That's a form of resiliency also. So my life mission is to see people come into the fullness of their potential and to fulfill their purpose in which they've been established on the earth, their mission in the earth.
There's really nothing better. I know I get asked that question a lot. I've been in different career fields and whatnot, and some of them lucrative on the outside, and they're like, why are you still here? And it's the people. And I know, like, sometimes I feel like I'm a walking cliche, and I just say the thing that I'm supposed to say. But if I really feel it, I mean, that's what I got to say. So I'm here for the people. There's nothing better when someone gets the degree or their adoption goes through, or, you know, they got your driver's license or they rode their first motorcycle or whatever it may be. It's just these things where when someone's accomplished something they put their mind to, it's amazing. And I want to touch on real quick, before we kicked off the recording, we kind of touched on resiliency is the ability to look back at something difficult and say, hey, I did that. I made it. So I think that's one thing. You know, you should not dwell on the past. That's a completely different thing. Like, don't dwell on it, but look back at the accomplishment and say, hey, you know, that was pretty tough, but I got through. I think a lot of times we're wanting things to be too easy and still have resiliency. You can't have easy and resiliency. You got to have some difficulty, and that's how you build up that resiliency. And in the episode that releases actually today, the person, Miss Laura, she had talked about paper plates, which I really enjoyed her definition, her analogy there. So every time you go through a difficult situation and you get to the other side, you put another paper plate in your stack. And then when you get that big bowl of spaghetti or whatever that hits the plate, if you got your paper plate stacked up, you can take that large meal and get through that difficult situation. But if you only get that one flimsy little paper plate because you've never been through nothing, it's just going to fall right to the ground. So that's a really good analogy for that one. So I want to open up and have a few questions my way. Make sure we're going both ways in this conversation. So what questions do you have for me?
Well, let me ask you this, though, Sheer Excellence. You mentioned about your mom and the
grandma.
Excuse me. What's that? Yeah,
grandmother.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Your grandmother. You mentioned about your grandmother having the challenges in that space of mental health. What is one aspect that she deposited in you that you would love to see going forward with others?
I think it's, kind of like we had talked about, like your goal in life, pouring into other people. I saw that constantly. So the examples that I used, helping people and pulling over and making conversation and, just constantly helping people. I think I probably got that from her, which I'm kind of glad you asked that question. I've never really stopped and thought about it before, but that must be where that comes from, because I always want to help people, and it's hard for me to walk by, someone that needs help or something like that, and that might be something that the world is having some challenges with. I feel like the more we go on, people kind of pass by people that need help. So I think that's the biggest thing. And it kind of goes back to putting yourself in other people's shoes. We never know what's going on with everyone, and they might be having different battles and things like that. So just stopping and helping them real quick, you have no idea what that means. And sometimes it's simple things. I think we want it to be this Herculean effort or something big, but just saying hi or how you're doing or smile. Some of these smaller things, you got that butterfly effect where it ripples out so much. Maybe that smile and hey, how are you doing? And really caring, ripples out from that person. And, they were having one of the worst days, and then they were able to bounce back, and then, they take care of others. So I guess the pay it forward is really the biggest thing for me. So, well, I guess two. So one is, thinking about it from other people's shoes that day that you had the worst day, just pause, reflect, think about where they could be, and then try and take care of them.
Come on. So the main attribute she released to you was empathy. She personified empathy for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh man, come on.
To be able to connect with others, right?
Oh man, come on. John Maxwell in his book said many people communicate, but few connect.
Ain't that the truth?
Oh my gosh, man. And so that's a beautiful thing, man. My mom was the exact same way. She would go out on the streets in Atlanta and would cook, robust breakfasts, bring out eggs, grits, bacon, orange juice, whatever, and bring it out to homeless people on the street that she had just cooked. And so she was huge into helping people, really big.
And helping people for the right reasons, right? I think that's another thing that's really difficult. We're in a social media world and TikTok. And so I hope people continue to help people for, the right reason and not for followings or other things like that. So,
Oh
that's
my
interesting.
gosh. Yeah. I am a low key person in a sense. I'm a big person, which is oxymoronic. I'm a big personality, but I'm low key. When it comes to doing stuff for people, a lot of times my wife don't even know. No, seriously.
Nice.
Like she'll find out, oh, your husband did this, and it's something that wouldn't take from the family, but it was something that was very impactful for that particular individual or group of individuals that she may not even know. She'll find out later about it because I do it and I pretty much forget about it.
That's awesome. That's kind of why I love being a medical service corps officer. We work the backside of the clinic and take care of things. We're not in the front. We're not the providers. We're not the people you ever see, but your supplies showed up, your internet worked, your HVAC turned on. We got you all taken care of, but it's kind of that in the background, making sure things happen. And I love that just personal accomplishment. Like, no one knows I coordinated to get the AC to work that day, but I do. And, people are coming to the door and getting the patient care and the things they need. I'm not the person, directly in patient care, but making sure things happen. It's kind of nice in the background.
Come on. Something beautiful that you said, though, like the illustration about resiliency and the paper plates. One thing about us, we're merchants of hope. And hope is a transferable competency. I remember when I was stationed at Langley Air Force Base, there was a young lady. I didn't know she was on the verge of suicide. But there was some encouragement that I delivered to her. And I found out about it later. Some other people told me and said that, man, what you said so encouraged her, but she was on the verge of suicide. And so what we do can have a second or third order effect on other individuals. And so simply being kind to people and being a merchant of hope can actually help build resiliency because it can establish that social pillar.
That's interesting too. Did she come back and tell you, or how did you know that how close it was?
I found out because somebody in my squadron, she told somebody in my squadron and said, you have a very special individual within your unit. This person spoke to me and I was on the verge of I was considering suicide. And so she told them who it was, and they came back and told me, and I had no idea that she
That's
was
the
on the verge.
craziest part. You never know. So my last flight that I had, I did a stand-up every Friday, brought everyone together. We were going through COVID, so we needed a way to get information out. And I'd start that meeting every Friday saying, I love you all. And I'm like, that's going to be weird. It's going to freak some people out, but I don't really care. But we had one guy in our flight, his brother had passed away, and they were, best of friends, like as tight as you can be. And he later, it was like a year and a half later, was coming out of the holiday party. He was about to leave the island, and he stopped me outside of the holiday party. It was like, I was in the darkest place of my life, and I remembered you saying that you loved me. And yeah, it was pretty crazy. So I think the biggest thing is you just have to keep doing the right thing. You're not going to maybe get the feedback sometimes. I feel like feedback in this world, everyone will jump on Yelp and tell you the restaurant's terrible, but they don't like to jump on there and give the praise as much. It seems to be the harder thing. So I was going out telling I loved them because that's, what I felt in my heart, and that's what I needed to get out. I had no idea if anyone cared, or they just thought I was, saying it to hear myself talk. That's kind of how I felt. I'm like, oh, this guy just talks too much. But that moment will be something, I'll carry for the rest of my life for sure. So it's crazy. You never know. You just got to keep pouring it out. Maybe you'll never know, maybe you'll never get the closed loop.
Right. And that's fine, because you're simply being who you are. Real love is tangible. Real love is tangible. There's a tangible expression. People out in California, they are real sympathetic, but in some cases, they may not be empathetic. So they'll come through. They may see you on the side of the road. Oh man, that is horrible. I feel so bad for you. All right, but I got to be going. However, I'm from Atlanta, so somebody in the South might come by like, man, oh my God, I got to come over here and help you. Oof, man, I had somewhere to be. Man, this is some foolishness. You should have put that together, this, that, and other. But they helping you, and so they're being empathetic. Now, I'm just using that as an analogy. I'm not saying everyone is in California is that way, or everyone's in the South is that way. But making that distinction between sympathy and empathy. And so that real love is tangible, where it's stepping to a space where someone is and actually extending a helping hand.
There's a great video. We watched it at SOS. I wish I could find the link. If I can, I'll try to put it in this description. But it was showing the difference between that. And it was like, the sympathy was, oh, poor you. Then the other one was like, oh, I've been in a similar situation. Let me get down beside you. Like, that's different. Like, up above, looking down your nose, like, poor you. And then the other one kneeling down. Hey, let's figure out how to move forward. Even if they're, poking a little bit of fun. I mean, I'd rather take the poking the fun if you're beside me.
Right.
Oh, okay. We're jumping around a little bit, but let's get back. Love to hear more about you. So can you tell us a little bit about your origin story? Where are you from?
Well, I'm originally from Atlanta, raised by a single mother. We moved approximately 8 to 10 times before I reached the 4th grade. Now, that's a lot of moving for a civilian, but that shows the instability that my mother had at that time. And so she dealt with the mental illness. She dealt with the stigma. She was classified as being paranoid schizophrenic. So from an early age, I dealt with that piece. And plus I was an only child. So I was the only person for her to lean upon. I was the only person who she perceived ever truly loved her. And so as a kid, she wanted to extract love from me. Kids can be selfish. Now, I did love my mom. But the beautiful thing about her Even though she was beautiful and broken, man, she imparted some leadership principles to me. She was an out of the box thinker and she was fearless. If my mother wasn't struggling with mental health, she would have been a legislative powerhouse and force in the community. And so right now, I picked up part of that mantle to fulfill the things that she didn't fulfill concerning her mission. And so that's the space that I'm from.
Okay, so I got this question from Senior Master Sergeant Robert Rivers. Great question. I love it. I had to plug it in. Since we only got about an hour of time with the guest, this is one I think is a good way to get to know you in a short amount of time. So how are you using your time? What's one app you're using, one book you recommend, and one thing you're listening to?
Oh, my. Come on. Well, I would say the book that I read outside. Now, I read the Bible every day. I read the Bible. The other book that I really like, I would say love, is Simon Sinek's Start With Why. Beautiful, beautiful piece. The other book that I love is the book called Integrity by Henry Cloud. Most of us in the Air Force or the military, we really don't know what integrity is. And the way he defined integrity in that book is absolutely mind-blowing and made me relook at integrity. And
what are your two biggest takeaways from those books?
My two biggest takeaways from Simon Sinek's book is starting with the title, Starting With Why. And the aspect of when you start with why, you're starting with your heart first. When it comes to whatever you're doing. If you're in business, you're doing it because something is within your heart and how you're going to impact humanity. And that's what people can connect to. People are spirit beings. And so our spirit men, the spirit within us is like Wi-Fi. And we connect with one another's routers. And so people can connect. And so they can connect with the big thing. Why I'm here is why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's my biggest takeaway from Simon Sinek's book. And the other thing is my why helps with my design and infrastructure. I make everything from why I'm doing it, and everything communicates it. So there's a level of consistency.
And one thing I wanted to touch on real quick, I hate to jump back, but I got to touch on it. So earlier you said words turn into feelings. And so there's one thing Simon talks about is he went and interviewed people that were nervous or about to go into a job interview. And then he interviewed people that were up for the Olympics, right? And so he asked them, what are your symptoms? They're like sweaty palms, my heart is racing, I'm sweating. All of them have the exact same symptoms, right? And then he said, how are you feeling? So the person going in for the interview said they were nervous. The people that were going up on the largest stage in the world for the Olympics say, I'm excited. They've worked their whole life for that opportunity. So nerves is not there. Nervous is not there. It's excited. I'm here. I'm ready to prove myself. I'm ready to get up and be first, second, third, take gold. But the symptoms, the heart rate, the sweatiness, exactly the same, right? So the word is transforming the feeling. Exactly what you said. I'm excited. Let's get it. Or I'm nervous. I'm going to, shriek back. I'm going to be, not feeling great. Things like that. That's all that is the word. Nothing changes in that but the word.
Come on.
Isn't that wild?
I know. And the other part of your question too about Henry Cloud's book on integrity. That book is good. That book is good.
I'm grabbing it now.
The way one of the aspects of integrity, I look at it along these lines. Integrity is words come first, actions follow, right?
Mm.
So there's a continuum of truth. There's a long line of truth. Honesty, and this is connected to the book, but the book doesn't say this. Honesty is actions occur first, words follow. Anybody, a criminal can be honest. Did you steal the candy bars? Yes, I did. I went in and I died. Actions come first, words come later. In the middle of it is candor. Candor is the releasing of unsolicited information whereby the other party would feel betrayed if you didn't share. That's in the middle. That's candor. But integrity, words first, actions follow. In his book, he talked about, and some things I thought were integral. Like somebody, they reported what they did. Oh man, that person was integral. No. They were honest. But in this sense, he talked about aircraft. And he was saying that, look, some aircrafts, like let's say the F-22, it's built for certain level of aerodynamics. And the way that it's built is to maintain a level of integrity. The integrity that is put into that metal equips it to deal in those particular terms, to be aerodynamic. Another aircraft that lacks that level of integrity, that level of design, cannot function within that space. He also gives an example of an individual he worked with on a project. And he said the guy would do everything within the contract. Everything he said he would do in the contract. He said, however, if there was a slight change of the smallest element, he was looking to charge you for it. He would say, hey, we got to do this, this, and this. And he would charge you and hit you across the head with it. He said, and he showed that was a lack of integrity. He said, because sure, he did everything that he said he would do in the contract. But when it came to the integrity, and the integrity was about looking out for others like you would look out for yourself. And so he mentioned, somebody else said, hey, you work with this particular person. Would you recommend it? He said, sure. He said, yes, I will warn you, make sure you got all your ducks in a row. And if you have to make a change, you will be charged and charged heavily for it. But I never thought of integrity along those lines.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's good stuff. And then the last thing was John Paul Jackson's teaching on dreams.
Yes. Man, we dream all of the time, most of us. And John Paul Jackson's teaching on dreams is so impactful because dreams to me are like a panoramic motion picture of what's going on with you or what will be going on to you in the future or through you. And so that teaching on dreams helps you when it comes to examining dreams, looking at dreams, and really understanding. And dreams, man, they're so important. A dream can serve as an avenue or a bank of hope because you got a dream and you're like, man, I'm going through this tough situation. I'm going through this tough time. I need to maintain my integrity and I need to continue to walk this out and be resilient.
Mm-hmm. Good stuff. Okay, next question. What's one lesson you've learned in this life you think everyone should learn?
I would say one of the key things we've been taught in school, we've been taught in school and in life to keep it safe. I would say forget about safety. Don't think safe first. Because our failures are fertilizer for our future progress.
Mm,
If you're going to
okay.
fail, sit down and process it properly. A farmer gets manure on the ground. Now that manure stinks, but he takes it through a process and uses it, and it becomes fertilizer that gives him richer crops.
Mm.
So that's what I would say. Take your failures and let it become fertilizer for future success because you process it properly. In life, we have stuff happens. Stuff
Stuff will
happens. And I'm
always
not
happen.
cursing. Yeah. Stuff happens. Manure happens. SHIT. Consider it, and I'm not cursing, super high intensity training.
Mm.
Leverage it for your purpose.
That's another thing I think. I think we touched on this briefly, but or maybe it was before we started recording. But social media just kind of paints the world in a completely different light. So you see the people that already made it famous. You know, the Shark Tank, their idea is already huge, and things like that. And so I feel like this is in that same realm where, you know, the best example or the one I can think of off the top of my head is WD-40. I'd be going to the garage for WD-40 all the time, spraying things that are making noise or to clean things, be going through those cans all the time. You know why it's called WD-40?
Why?
Because it was the 40th formula. There was 39 other formulas that didn't work. They didn't work. They
Wow.
didn't do what they were supposed to. People didn't buy it. But they got to 40 and they're like, this is the one. But that seems to be something that's kind of lost. This current thing, like they want to do Formula One, everything work out, everything be good, no manure, no plow in the fields, and putting in the hard work. You know, everyone knows WD-40. You could probably go anywhere in the world, and you know people would know that logo at this point. But it took 39 formulas, and I'm sure that was months or years of time every formula. So who knows how long that took to get to WD-40, but it's a household name now.
Come on, man. I like that. And along the same lines, Thomas Edison. When the reporter asked Thomas Edison, how does it feel to fail in producing the light bulb 10,000 times? Thomas Jefferson turned it on him. He said, no, inventing the light bulb was a process that took 10,000 steps.
Oh, he had to do 99,999, not how to do it, to get the one that did work.
Exactly. But think about this. Think about the level of resilience, but also think about the mental fitness that he was building through his perseverance. He was strengthening in the midst of failure, in the midst of other people saying, man, you need to give that up. And his stick-to-itiveness, he kept going. And man, that level, I mean, you talking about some mental fitness.
Which that goes back to, I feel like in the military, we always use the example of the rubber band for resiliency, which I think is dumb. Like, oh, just bounce back. They like to say just bounce back. Like, what does that mean? But we go to the paper plate, right? He's got 99 paper plates. His paper plates, whoo, he's taking the biggest meal, ribs and, everything else you could take, the heaviest items. He's taking all of it. But I never really thought about that. 99 times you failed. Like, that is a lot of mental fitness. 98,000. I don't know. I'd be like, maybe I got to throw this in. But he had the perseverance to go through 99 to get to the light bulb and take care of all of us. Now he just hit the switch and comes right on. How crazy.
And the cool thing about mental fitness, it's a team sport. It's a team sport. And so when you think about the pillars of resiliency, the spiritual, mental, physical, and social pillars, all four of those, team sport, especially the social pillar. I had one of my my favorite commanders of all time, Brigadier General Tinsley, committed suicide in Alaska. 2007, I'm walking to the BX and I see the Air Force Times and I'm like, not my guy.
Mm.
This guy was such an impactful leader that I remember him when he was a colonel. He was my group commander before. When he was in your presence, he had the ability to exude authority at the same time connect with you.
Mm.
And so Airman Basic and Airman Basic felt comfortable in his presence. The reason why I know this was something that he was emanating from his person, the same thing that I knew in Virginia, and Airman Basic said the same thing in Alaska where he committed suicide.
Wow.
So this guy was impactful. He was the best fighter pilot. He was a tremendous leader, but behind the scenes, things that he didn't talk about, more likely, they got the best of it. The strongest of the strong, who had the ability to identify with the weakest.
Yeah, which is super powerful. We'll have some interviews coming up in future podcasts, but I have a couple of those where it's the person you wouldn't expect. The person, is not supposed to have problems. So some really great ones coming up, but that's a good reminder just to, say that out loud. Mental fitness or mental health issues can impact anybody. So we got that thing. Oh, you're got it all squared away. There's demons. There's things people are struggling with on the inside. And I think that's probably one of the most difficult parts of the whole thing, because I love the aspect of calling it mental fitness, but there are some elements that are more difficult with it. Like, traditional fitness, you can see someone get slimmer, you can see, the muscles grow and things like that, but you can't see the scars, the wounds, and the demons of the mental aspect. So that does have a completely different challenge to it, to be able to know when to step in or try to take care of someone. But that's hopefully the point of the podcast, at least this one, and having these conversations and making it more normal. So I want to move on to...
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, good. But there are certain metrics that we can actually detect when it comes to mental fitness. Depends on our level of relationship. So if we know their history and we know how they went through certain things, and if we've partnered with them and said, hey, you could press through and give them some tools, we could see when they come out on the other side and how they handle other situations. So what you're saying is true. We may not be able to see some of the scars, but there is some metrics where we can begin to see progress, but it's all based on relationship.
Dang, we're going to have another episode. I got to hear some more about that. We'll have to come back to that at some point. Next one, this is one of my most intriguing questions, I guess is the best way to put it. But did you have conversations about mental health growing up?
My conversations were mainly, I didn't have conversations about mental health. My mom was talking to me about her mental illness. Because she, several times, like she would be locked in a room for days or at a mental hospital getting a break. And so all of the conversations were centered around that. And every conversation that I heard from other people had negative connotations associated. Man, or people, family members. Well, your mom's just crazy. In which my mom wasn't crazy. The mind, the soul could be injured just like any other body part.
Yeah. Yeah, that's sad when people get labeled in certain ways, but, hopefully we'll continue to have these conversations and we'll clear the stigma. I don't think it's going to be quick or, around the corner, but we got to keep on pressing on.
I agree.
So I wanted to ask you a question. You were in the military for a couple of years.
Right.
Now departed, working on your own stuff. But as we're talking about here, and someone that has now left the military, went through a wonderful retirement and a glorious career. I'm curious, what do you think one thing the military does right in regards to mental health and one thing they need to work on?
I believe the military does a tremendous job, especially the Air Force. I believe we do a great job now when it comes to destigmatizing mental health and talking about it from an aspect and giving and creating or giving people the latitude to establish a safe place to express the deep things that are on the deep recesses of their hearts. I believe the military does a great job with that, especially the Air Force. On the flip side, one challenge though, in the midst of it, we want to be comforting, but not coddling. And so I see where we're creating the safe space, but we don't want the pendulum to swing to the other side, because there are things that we need to strengthen fellow service members in pressing through and not rescuing them from it. We want to help them, because when you begin to coddle, then the whole thing, you begin to create a new stigma where the entire culture of it is losing credibility, because people are coddling and not holding. And when I say holding people accountable, it's just asking questions at the right time. Because sometimes mental fitness can deal with a person's level of competency, or it could deal with their level of capacity. It could be one or the other. And we need to address that to help them walk through it, because it's not a permanent state. It's a dynamic situation. It's not static.
Which I think that goes back to, which is repeating, but I think repeating is important for, reinforcement, but that's that getting beyond a difficult situation and knowing that you can get through it. You don't have you don't have anything to bounce, the ability to bounce back when things get difficult. We're going to move on to another question. So you've touched on a lot of these aspects, but just want to make sure we capture all these. So why is mental health important to you personally? So you kind of touched on, the ability to have a prosperous life and wanting to destigmatize. But what are some other things you want to touch on, and mental health being important to you personally?
Well, one of the other reasons why mental health is important with me, because mental health or mental fitness is one of the, and let me start with mental health in an aspect. Mental health is one of the silent struggles that shackles a lot of people. And so that's why I want to deal with it, because it's one of those hidden enemies. Like the difference between, there's a difference between DUI and sleep deprivation. One of them is punitive. The other has the same effect, but it's non-punitive. If a police pull you over and you're sleepy, they're just going to say, hey, guy, get some rest. If they pull you over with DUI, they're going to lock you up. Sleep deprivation is just as big of a killer as DUI. It has the same aspect. There are studies that show that when you lack certain amount of hours of sleep, it's like drinking so many beers, but it's non-punitive. So it's a silent killer. It's a non-punitive killer. The punishment is on the individual and the people that are impacted by the crash. But it's not. You don't get locked up for it.
That's wild, because either way, you're commanding a 3,000-pound vehicle through the streets, right? So if you fall asleep, that vehicle's still going somewhere. That's wild. Completely different. Huh. I mean, same, but different.
Yeah. And so with mental health, it's one of those things that's silent. You mentioned that before. It's silent. It's behind the scenes. It's camouflaged in a lot of smiles and a lot of other things. Pseudo. It's camouflaged in that people don't want to be a burden, this, that, and the other, or people don't want to be stigmatized. And so that's one of the things that we want to open up, those safe spaces for people to share what's on their hearts.
Absolutely. So I want to transition because look through the notes, and I really love what you wrote in here. So I'd like to hear more from you on not being prepared for a situation. Because if you're not prepared, you're going to be stressed. You're going to feel a lot of different things. But that shouldn't be the excuse for not preparing. That doesn't mean you're having, a terrible mental fitness or mental health day. So can you touch on making sure that you're prepared for the things that you take on?
Most definitely. And again, that goes to mental fitness. That goes to the example that you mentioned from Simon Sinek's book, Start With Why, about the difference between the two individuals that were going up in front of a large crowd. One of them said, "Hey, I've been preparing for years for this. I'm excited." The other one is nervous. When it comes to the space of an individual not being prepared, that can open you up to some fitness issues. That can open you up to a level of criticism that you're not prepared for, that you actually brought on to yourself because you didn't invest the amount of equity you needed into that particular project. And so that could be really harmful. So being prepared sets you up and puts you in a space where you could skyrocket.
Yeah. You still got to put in the work on the front, which goes back to the manure.
Hey,
These are all reinforcing, right?
right. You gotta put that in. And one of the things that works against our preparation is now, with all of the apps, all of the platforms, there is a level of distraction. Mental fragmentation, like your mind's everywhere.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so when I look at the word distraction, I'm thinking about disconnecting you from traction. You were moving forward, and now you're disconnected from moving forward. You're disconnected from the traction you were making. And so being all over the place instead of just being focused and aligned, and that preparation sets you up. That preparation leads to focus and clarity and puts you in another space.
Nice. I saw throughout the notes there's a few acronyms in here. So this one is TALK. It sounds like this too shall pass. Can you kind of walk us through TALK?
Right. So let's say if someone experiences a challenge and we need to pull them off of a project, and they say, "Hey, I'm really stressed out right now." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So you're stressed out. We pull you off the project, and then I begin to inquire, what's going on when the dust settles. I'm going to have a conversation with the individual. I'm going to talk to them. I want to ask some questions. So I'm going to be truthful, assertive, loving, and kind, so that we can keep accountability within the mental fitness space.
But still connect.
We're still going to connect. And so, and what happens in many cases, and we've touched this several times, but a lot of people are hands off. Like they could see something nefarious is happening, or somebody is leveraging the thing. They're leveraging, "Hey, you know what? This is a mental health thing. Hey, just get me out." It could be something that they were unprepared for, or they didn't put in the work, and they want you to pull them off the project, and they may be stressed and overloaded. I'm like, okay, cool. I still want to come back and ask those questions after the dust settles. And there are 4 principles that I use before I have conversations with an individual. I consider timing, place, heart posture, and word choice. Timing, place, heart posture, and word choice. I don't want to do it at the wrong time or the wrong place because the message won't be received. I don't want to have the wrong heart, even though I got the right words, because the message won't be received.
Wow.
Or if I got the right words and the wrong heart, I still don't want to do it. So I got to do that, and then we could have that talk. Truthful, assertive, loving, and kind.
And that's not one of those. You can have a few of them, but not all of them. It sounds like you got to have every one of those.
Right. You need to have all of those in place.
That's an all or nothing. I want to move on to the next question. This one's a little deep. Can't wait to hear your thoughts. But what's the biggest challenge you've overcome in your personal mental health?
Oh my gosh. I would say the biggest the biggest challenge I ever had with my personal mental health would be I was divorced. So I'm remarried, so I was divorced years ago. And when I went through that divorce, the people that were around me that I leaned upon, that I shared life with, they turned on.
Had to pick a side. Oh,
Right. They had to pick a side. So they picked a side, and I understand it. They picked a side, and man, I was broken. And that really challenged me. On top of that, my son, I didn't get to see my son for a while. So that disturbed me. Not to get to see my big man.
That's tough. So what actionable things did you do? You could have went down spiral and then endlessly down, right? What did you use to kind of break that cycle and get feeling a little bit better?
Well, what I did, I leaned upon my friends that were faithful. I had my pastors I was connected with. They prayed for me a lot. They shared with me wise counsel. And they stood along my side as I walked through that entire process. They allowed me to share the things that were upon my heart. And over time, I was able to walk out of that situation into another space.
It seems like a lot of times you just got to break the cycle and, start going in the other direction. I mean, obviously easier said than done, but the social pillars, being able to lean on people and get going the right direction, super important.
And I would say, I know there's a lot of talk now about self-care. And I would say self-care is essential for survival. Self-care is extremely important. But being other-centric is very important for mental fitness.
Yeah, I think being connected to the greater population is really important, regardless of introvert, extrovert, things like that.
Right.
There's just something you need, being human, growing up, whatever, being part of that larger community is super important.
Right.
Absolutely.
And when I'm talking about serving others in something that you love to do. Take care of yourself, but serve others in something that you love to do, and it will shift your mentality and get it all for you. You still taking care of you. Right. But then when you shift and focus, because there's something innate within us where God created us, where when we do something good for somebody else, we feel great.
That's funny you mentioned that, because I have this introduction I do with my flight, and I mentioned some of the difficult things I've been through. So divorce and shared custody, and my grandparents have passed away, and my bonus dad died at 50 and different things. So a lot of different things that are very negative, right? But the way I look at it, which I don't know if it's like weird or skewed or whatnot, but if I get to help somebody, that was for a reason, that was for a purpose, and I get to use it for something. Like, why have something suck to suck? That's not any good. Like, oh, that sucked. Like, I dwell on it, and it doesn't do anything. But instead, now when I have somebody come into the office and want to share something, and I in no way, I repeat this every time. I'm not saying I've been through everything. I'm not saying I've been through your exact situation. I'm just saying I've been through something, and we can sit down and connect. And, the two biggest things I try to do is, one, listen. You want to vent and, release and then let it go. perfect, or I'm going to get on it and start fixing. Those are two different things, and I think those are very different. Sometimes it's just vent. I need to do this. Don't try and fix anything for me. I can fix it myself, or I'll fix it later. Or, hey, I'm going to start making phone calls, and we're going to get after this. You just let me know what needs to happen. But I think that's super important, because those situations did suck, and they were, very low points in my life, but they're now, good, or at least neutral, however you want to look at it, because I get to use it to connect with other people. So don't let someone suck to suck, get out there and, and use it for the greater good.
I agree with you. Leverage it. And when we're talking about serving others, it's not to provide Novocaine to the pain. We're not looking for that. The pain is the pain. You want to address the pain, but you want to take your mind off of it. The difference between the Dead Sea and other bodies of water, anything that is stagnant begins to become putrid. It begins to stink. So the Dead Sea is dead, no life in it, because it receives an inflow, but there's no outflow. When there's outflow, there's life. And so you go on with your life. You still maintain a level of self-care. You need that for survival. But in order to thrive, we need to serve. And that could bring us out of that space. Serving something that we love doing.
Yeah, that's super important. I want to know, what are some of the actionable things? What are habits you do routinely, as we talked about mental fitness, things that you're doing ongoing to take care of your mental fitness?
One of the things that I do, one of the things that I'm doing, and this is one of the things some things I'm doing, other things that I am orientating, saying, look, I got to do more of this. One of the things that's very important for my mental health is recreation. I call it recreation, not recreation. Because, because when I'm out doing something that I love to do, I'm stepping back into the highest level of creativity that I could have. It's like refreshing a computer.
Oh.
So that's very important for my mental health, and connecting with friends, individuals with the same values, with the same passions, where we feed off of one another. Sometimes you have a conversation with somebody and you feel like you could fly when you leave that conversation, because there was strategic life exchange taking place between you two.
Wow.
And so those things are extremely important.
Yeah, it reminds me, I hate running in the military. Like, oh, you'll learn to love it. I'm now over 14 years. I'm still not loving it, but it's part of my terms of employment, so I got to keep on running. But one thing I've found that really helps me get through is the Nike Run app. Coach Bennett is on there. He does guided runs where he's talking in your ear, and that guy can't get you motivated. I don't know what will, but one of the things he talks about is recovery runs. And so he says recovery runs, people see as slow and boring, and I don't want to do my recovery run. But one thing he did in one of the recovery runs is he defined the word recovery, which kind of gave me, the epiphany and kind of puts it all in perspective. He said recovery is regaining something that was lost or stolen. So you're regaining your energy, you're regaining the things you can, so you can do the fast runs, the long runs, the sexy runs, the things that are cool to you, right? You have to put in the recovery to be able to do the cool things, but to regain what is lost or stolen. So you're going to, over time, lose your energy, lose your motivation, lose, muscle fiber, whatever it may be, but you are regaining. And I think the most powerful part of his definition is, like you had talked about earlier, is the proactiveness is going after life and getting it. You are taking it back. You're not allowing the energy to flow back to you, or just sitting there and maybe I'll feel better later, or maybe I'll take a nap or whatnot. You are going out and getting it. And so by putting the slower miles or the slower things in, you're still moving forward, but you're allowing your body to regain and take back what was lost or stolen. So I love that definition he put in there. Regain, what was taken from you.
Come on, because exercise is a key part. of resiliency. It deals with that particular pillar. I remember a while back, I was catching a lot of colds,
Hmm.
and wisdom came to me and said, "You've been eating a lot, but you've been starving yourself to death."
Oh, not eating the right things.
Right. I wasn't nourishing myself at the cellular level.
Hmm.
So I've been eating a lot, but you've been eating a lot, but you've been starving yourself to death. And I
Dang,
was like,
that's that's powerful.
I know, man. And so I begin to, over time, I've changed the way that I eat, because that's very important. People we don't realize that mental fitness is also associated with what we eat.
Oh yeah.
One of my other suggestions is for people to go to YouTube and look at the teaching by Dr. Daniel Amen. Oh my God, him and Dr. Mark Hyman.
Hmm.
They talk about nutrition, and there's a YouTube video called How to End Mental Illness.
Oh.
Brilliant. Brilliant. They make a connection to food. It's not saying that you don't do the other things, but they talked about how much food impacts our mood and what happens with us.
Which makes
Yeah.
sense. You got whole person stuff, right? I can't really tackle one thing. You got to really take care of all of it.
I
Earlier,
know. Oh, go
oh,
ahead.
sorry. Earlier, I'd asked about, what your conversations were with mental health and things like that growing up. I'm curious, like you've lived a couple more years now and whatnot. So, what are your perspectives, and how do you reflect back on what you thought of mental health as you were growing up versus now?
Well, unfortunately, at that time, when I was young, I looked down on my mother. I was thinking like, man, you just need to get together. Like, you being
Mm.
weak. And so as a child, a teenager, looking down on my mother and looking at other people cross-eyed when they were going through those struggles. I look at that now. I look at that then as opposed to now, understanding that we help bear one another's burdens and
Mm.
help people. It's not a death sentence. It's not a life sentence when it
Yeah,
comes to
understanding
mental.
is really important, right?
Right. Yeah. So I look at it from a totally different picture. And there's something in the book of Psalms that said that your gentleness has made me great.
Mm.
Now I could be gentle with people who are having those struggles. I could be extremely gentle and help them walk through that particular process and
Which
get
sounds like that connection and that empathy, right? That connection.
right. Get more
Mm.
mentally stronger, man. I had someone contact me not too long ago because I would speak at the Chief Leadership Academy. And I connected with someone that I knew from the past. And basically, this person is higher up, high. They called me and they let me know they were pretty much on the other end, but they were within the self-harm spectrum.
Oh.
They could have done something to themselves.
Mm.
But it was beautiful that they saw something in me, that they saw me as a safe place.
Mm.
And I was one of the few individuals that they talked to. And so I'm switching a little bit, but one of the things that I implore for, anyone listening, wherever you work at, there's a principle I live by called I squared. There's the responsibility of the institution and the responsibility of the individual. As an individual and as a leader, I want to remove gossip from wherever I'm working, because it allows people to come through in authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
When they know that they're not being talked about, and when they see me, not as Superman, but as Clark Kent with Superman type exploits. When I'm showing my scars and they know that people are not being talked about, it opens the avenue for other people to begin to share their story. And they begin to see, oh my God, you're going through this. You went through this. Oh, you went through this. And then people begin to come together. But gossip is kryptonite.
Yeah, that goes into like Brene Brown's, her vulnerability stuff. I know I try to open up and like I talked about, kind of talk about some of the things that I've been through in my life. And I know that kind of is weird or might freak out some people. Like, you're not supposed to show anything. You're not supposed to be weak. But if there is any moment of connection or ability of someone to bring something forward, I'm down for that. So I'll be a little goofy, a little vulnerable and things like that. And I think that makes us more powerful. I think sometimes being on the officer side, there's a little bit more pedestal or division. And, I'm a person just like everyone else. I have good days and bad days, but sometimes there's, there always has to be some level of respect based on the structure that we have. But people are people. I mean, you can bring me things and things like that. But I do have another question for you. Can you share some tips or strategies? I talked about at the beginning. People are really going to leave with some great tips and strategies. So what are some things the listeners can start implementing in their lives today, maybe?
I would say one of the key things that individuals can implement in their lives today, I would take the acrostic or the acronym TRASH, right? TRASH. So the T, I want to treat trauma. Any trauma that I got, I want to treat it. I want to get counseling. I want to share it with friends. And so you want that safe place for unveiling your heart. And then I want to deal with the R. I want to remove toxins. Those toxins can be programming, people, or poisons. Programming, the lens that I see through. If I'm seeing something and it's off, and people are letting me know that it's off. Stephen Covey made this statement. He said, we don't see the world as it is. We see it as we are, or the way we've been conditioned to see it. So I want to remove toxins. I want to remove toxic thinking. I want to remove toxic people that are not merchants of hope, but they're dispensers of despair. I want to get them up out of there. And also poisons. I want to detox my body because I talked about Dr. Daniel Amen. You remove those things from your body, you're doing good. And then I want to annihilate any accusations that I have against anybody. I want to forgive. I want to clear my heart and readily forgive people. And for a tool, man, I would suggest that people go out on YouTube to Dennis and Dr. Jennifer Clark. They have a teaching on forgiveness that is mind-blowing. We could definitely leverage that because that forgiveness turns into arthritis. That's what my mom dealt with. She dealt with a lot of unforgiveness because she had a root of rejection from being rejected from family. And so that forgiveness releases a lot of things and also releases a level of creativity and allows us to be resilient. And then the S, I want to separate from false expectations. That's what a lot of people, they're under pressure. They got false expectations. If somebody said, Mo, we're bringing you in to speak, but I need you to step up to this level because I told them this, this, and this. My wife laughs because I said, hey, I said, do you believe what you told them about me? Because if you didn't, you need to go back and tell them that, hey, I exaggerated. I lied. Because guess what? I'm not taking that upon me. I'm coming in. I'm being who I am. I'm not submitting to false expectations. That's on you. If you didn't believe it, you shouldn't have said it. And so I don't let people put those expectations on me. And then the H, holding yourself accountable. Whenever you see that you're doing certain things because you know truth and you say, you know what? I was straight wrong. I was straight wrong in this situation. And in order to hold yourself accountable, you got to have humility. There's something within our officer corps that is a little different from the enlisted. The officer corps is good. We got tremendous leaders, but there's an air that I've seen in our force that they want officers to have, especially in the Air Force. General Tinsley functioned with a level of humility. He was so humble that it was palatable. You are a 1-star, but an airman basic can feel comfortable in your presence.
It's powerful.
That is powerful. And I would charge officers with that, and anybody enlisted, whatever. Man, humility, man, is a beautiful thing. And humility allows us to go for help. So we want to hold ourselves accountable. We want to remove the trash.
Absolutely. I'd like to try to summarize some of the things we talked about today. So we talked about, words are powerful, having empathy for other people, and really, I think just sitting down and educating yourself. You mentioned quite a few different URLs, so I'm super excited for people to get out there and, check out some of these things about diet, letting people off the hook for different things and be able to get after that. So I think education is super important. I encourage everyone out there to share their thoughts, send me any messages, let me know what your thoughts and ideas are, or if you have any ideas for wanting to be on the show. I'll totally be here. All the links and everything will be in the notes for this. So we'll try to get all the stuff out there for social media to be able to connect if you need to. But I wanted to give one final thing for you and would love to know what message or takeaway you hope listeners will take today from today's podcast.
My main takeaway.
It's hard, right? Just one?
yeah, just one. But no. My main takeaway from today is to open yourself up. Open yourself to receive the help that you need. Being vulnerable. Me, one of the things, and I didn't mention this, but one of the things that has helped me to be really resilient is my quiet time that I spend with Jesus. He is the answer for all things. And man, I'm telling you, the manufacturer who created all things, he knows his product. And so that's why I go to him, because he's the one, man. If I could say anything that I shared with you was a tool, it came from truth, but it came from truth. It came from the word of God, and it came from the person of Christ. And I would say to anybody, whether you believe in him or not, we're going to have to stand before him.
The creator knows what's up, right?
Yes.
Well, Maurice, thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate you coming out. All the information, like I said, will be out there. We'll keep having these serious conversations, and I hope we start to lighten the mood. And even those are deep conversations and deep topics, they need to be had. So we're going to keep on having them. But that's all I got. You got anything else?
Hey, man, look, connect with me on Maurice Arnold on LinkedIn. Or, connect with me at connect@molosophy.com. That's how you can connect with me, or go to molosophy.com and check out my website, get on the contact. So I would say be blessed and just enjoy life to the fullest. Don't be courageous. I'm not asking you to be courageous. Courageous is a good thing. You do it in spite of fear, but we want to grow to the place that we're fearless. That's when you're dangerous.
Be fearless. Everyone out there, have a great day. We'll see you next time. See you.